The late afternoon breeze brushed across the quiet park in St. John's, Florida, carrying the sound of water tapping gently against the lake's edge. Families were scattered across the field, but Irwin's world had shrunk to a single moment, so small, so fragile, and yet powerful enough to make his knees unsteady. He stood frozen, holding a crying toddler who had wandered dangerously close to the lake. Her tiny hands clutched the collar of his shirt, her face damp with tears, her breath hiccuping against his chest. Irwin had moved on instinct when he saw her toddling too close to the water. No hesitation, no calculation. The well-composed billionaire CEO, known for precision and control, reacted like a man who suddenly remembered he had a heart. But it wasn't the near accident that shook him. It was the faint mark on her shoulder, a small curve, a familiar shape. Something etched into his memory since childhood. Something passed down through generations of his family. Something he had too. His fingertips trembled as he adjusted her slightly, needing to be sure he wasn't imagining it. The mark didn't disappear. It stared back at him, quiet and undeniable. His breath caught. His chest tightened. His pulse hammered violently against his ribs. No. He whispered, barely audible, but the word escaped him anyway. This can't be real. The little girl sniffled and pressed her cheek against him, her tiny voice breaking through her tears. Up. Up. She reached her arms around his neck and held on with surprising trust, as if she already knew he would keep her safe, as if she belonged there, as if this moment wasn't an accident at all. Irwin's vision blurred for a second. His heart lurched. His entire life, his past mistakes, his fears, his choices, rose up and choked him. This child, this tiny girl, she looked like him, and she had his birthmark. Now Irwin wasn't just shaken, he was unraveling inside. Have you ever had a moment where something from your past hit you so hard it stole the air from your lungs? Have you ever faced a truth you weren't prepared for, one that stared you in the face before you had time to hide? Irwin was living that moment now, and he couldn't breathe. This wasn't simply about a lost toddler anymore. He wasn't just holding a frightened little girl. He was holding a child who mirrored him in ways no stranger's child ever should. The eyes, the expression, the birthmark that only his family carried. A child like this shouldn't exist without him knowing, which meant one thing. His world was about to collapse. Irwin's throat tightened. His grip shifted, steady but trembling. Questions fired through his mind. Questions he wasn't ready for. Questions he wasn't built for. Who is she? How is this possible? What truth has been kept from me? But one question hit harder than all the others. Who is her mother? As Irwin's pulse raced out of control, a sudden scream tore through the park. Emma. The name stabbed straight through him. His entire body locked in place. He knew that voice. He knew it in ways that cut deeper than memory, deeper than regret. It was the voice of the one woman he failed. The one woman he cared for but didn't know how to protect. The one woman he never stopped thinking about, no matter how hard he tried. Lauren. The breath he'd been holding slipped out of him. She burst around the corner, breathless, terrified, her eyes wide with panic. She scanned the park wildly until her gaze collided with the sight of her daughter in Irwin's arms. The world didn't just pause. It broke open. Emma reached for her mother, but her other tiny hand remained curled in Irwin's shirt. The shock on Lauren's face shifted into something deeper, something that carried old wounds, quiet anger, fear, and the unmistakable sting of a past that never healed properly. Irwin swallowed hard. Lauren. His voice cracked for the first time in years. Why didn't you tell me? That question hung in the air with the weight of everything they once were, everything they lost, and everything about to change. Emma blinked between them, sensing the tension she didn't understand. This was the moment neither of them could run from anymore. Welcome to Mr. Graham Stories, where we share impactful life lessons through memorable stories. If you're new, we're truly glad you're here. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us for more inspiring narratives that speak to the heart and remind us of what truly matters in life. If today is your birthday, I want you to pause for just a second. Happy birthday to you. Wherever you're watching from, I hope this new year of your life brings peace, growth, and unexpected blessings. And here's something special. Tell us in the comments when your birthday is. Not just the month. Tell us the exact day. Someone reading the comments might share the same birthday as you. Before we move deeper into this story, please like this video and comment where you're watching from. It helps YouTube push this story out to more wonderful viewers like you. The world around them didn't move. Not the strollers in the distance, not the joggers on the trail, not even the breeze through the trees. It was as if the entire park held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Lauren stepped closer, slow, cautious, her arms stretched out toward Emma. Fear clung to her expression, mixed with something harsher, tighter, something that had nothing to do with the near accident and everything to do with the man holding her daughter. "Give her to me," Lauren said softly, though her voice trembled beneath the surface. Erwin shifted his hands automatically, adjusting his hold on Emma, but hesitation locked his arms in place. He wasn't trying to keep the child away from her. His body simply refused to move. His mind refused to move. Every part of him felt trapped between the past and a truth he didn't know how to face. "I didn't, Lauren, I just saw her near the water," he said, voice cracking more than he intended. "She almost—" He swallowed hard. "I couldn't let her fall in." "I know," she replied, quick and defensive, as if she didn't want gratitude to soften anything. "I'm not angry about that. Just give her to me, please." But Emma wasn't ready to let go. Her small fingers tightened around Erwin's shirt, her cheek pressing deeper against his chest. A quiet whimper escaped her lips, and she turned her face away from Lauren, as if she'd found the safest place in the world and didn't want to leave it. Lauren froze. Erwin froze. The air between them thickened with something old, something bruised, something unresolved. "Emma," Lauren whispered, voice breaking. "Come to Mommy." Emma peeked up briefly, eyes wet and confused, then buried herself against Erwin again. Lauren's shoulders lowered in defeat. Erwin's heart twisted painfully. He had no right to feel the way he felt, not this protective, not this shaken, not this connected to a child he had only held for a few minutes. But something inside him knew, in a way words couldn't explain, that this moment wasn't random. He finally forced himself to extend Emma toward her mother, and Lauren gently pulled the toddler into her arms. Emma went unwillingly, reaching back toward Erwin even as Lauren held her tight. That movement, those small fingers stretching toward him, stabbed into Erwin's chest like a memory that didn't exist but somehow belonged to him. Lauren noticed. Her eyes widened for a split second before she masked it with composure. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said stiffly, rocking Emma slightly to soothe her. "I didn't expect—" Erwin paused, running a hand through his hair. "Any of this." He wasn't choosing his words. He couldn't. Every sentence fought against the panic still crawling up his spine. He didn't want to accuse her. He wasn't even sure what he believed yet. He only knew that the mark on Emma's shoulder had ripped open a truth he wasn't emotionally prepared for. "Lauren, what's going on?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Her eyes flickered with caution. "Nothing that concerns you." "That's not fair." He took a slow breath, grounding himself. "I'm not trying to fight you." "Then what are you trying to do, Erwin?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut with precision. "Because the only thing I need right now is to take my daughter home." "Your daughter," he repeated quietly, his throat tightening. "Right." Lauren winced, so small, so quick, but he saw it. He didn't miss anything right now. Every detail hit like a punch. "I didn't mean it like—" He stopped himself. Words were failing him, slipping out wrong, tilted, tangled. I need to understand something." "There's nothing to understand." "Lauren, please." The word came out unsteady, desperate. Not the tone of a CEO, not the tone of a man used to control, the tone of someone lost. She blinked, once slowly, because that wasn't a version of him she'd seen before, not even when they were together. "You're shaking," she murmured, almost involuntarily. He didn't deny it. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now," he said. "I'm trying to think clearly, but—" His eyes flicked to Emma. "I saw that mark." Lauren stiffened instantly. Silence pressed down on all three of them. Emma shifted in her arms, then reached toward Erwin again, little hands outstretched, trusting, familiar, wanting him. That simple gesture shattered something inside him. It wasn't logical. It wasn't reasonable. It wasn't something he could defend if he were asked to explain it. But it felt real. Lauren pulled Emma a little closer, as if shielding her from a truth she wasn't ready to face. "Don't do this here," she whispered, voice shaking. "Please." "Not in front of her." "Do what?" His voice cracked again. "Ask why the child in your arms looks like me." Lauren's breath caught. Her eyes glistened, not with guilt, but with exhaustion. Fear, anger, wrapped in old hurt. The kind of pain that didn't heal cleanly. "You don't get to corner me after everything," she said, stepping back. "You don't get to appear out of nowhere and act like you're entitled to answers." "I'm not entitled," he said quickly. I'm confused. I'm trying to understand, but I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing. I don't want to hurt you again." That made her flinch. Erwin saw it. He hated himself for being the cause. "I'm not here to argue," he said softly. "I'm not here to judge you either. I need to know what this means. It doesn't mean what you think. Then tell me what it means." Lauren's arms tightened around Emma. Emma's fingers stretched toward him again. Emotional whiplash. Lauren fought it. Erwin felt it. The divide between them widened and closed at the same time. "I have to go," Lauren whispered. "She's tired. She needs to rest." "Lauren, don't." Her voice trembled. "Please, just don't." She turned away, holding Emma close, walking with hurried steps that betrayed just how shaken she truly was. Erwin didn't follow. His body wouldn't move. He stood frozen in the same spot, staring at the space she left behind, every part of him buzzing with questions that had no place to land. A truth he wasn't ready for had just grabbed him by the throat, and the one person who could explain it was walking away. Again, the park faded behind Erwin as he stood alone, but his mind refused to remain in the present. The moment Lauren walked away with Emma, her arms wrapped tight around the child, her face a storm of fear and guarded sorrow, something inside him cracked open and dragged him backward in time. The breeze against his skin felt colder, thinner, as if it carried the echo of a life he once almost had. For the first time in years, Erwin couldn't breathe past the memory of her. It came long before the arguments, long before the silence, long before the night everything fell apart. He remembered standing outside a cafe in Jacksonville, waiting for Lauren after their third date. She walked out laughing at something the barista said, sunlight catching her face, and Erwin, who rarely reacted to anything, felt strangely unsteady, not overwhelmed, not infatuated, just aware that she made him feel something he couldn't describe, something warm, inconvenient, unfamiliar. She greeted him with a smile so natural it made him wonder when he had last seen someone offer joy without hesitation. "You're early," she teased. "Or were you afraid I'd ditch you?" He had looked away then, pretending to adjust his sleeve. "I'm never afraid," he said, though the truth was he had felt the faintest flutter of worry. Not that she wouldn't come, but that she would, and he wouldn't know how to be enough. That was always his secret fear. Lauren didn't know that. She only saw the polished man who moved through the world without breaking a sweat, but she also saw his quiet moments, the small pauses, the rare smiles, the way he listened without trying to impress her. She saw the softness he didn't show anyone else. Those early days were effortless in a way neither expected. They weren't perfect, but they were real. Erwin could hear her laugh even now. It echoed through the memory like a melody he'd forgotten the tune of. And yet, that same memory carried the shadow of how it all ended. Erwin knew it the night he brought her to his family's home for a charity dinner. He had been so proud, so quietly, subtly proud, to introduce her to them. Not because she fit into his world, but because she didn't. He admired her strength, her independence, her conviction. He liked that she challenged him, questioned him, made him think beyond the rigid boundaries of his upbringing. But his family didn't see any of that. He remembered the moment clearly. Lauren stood beside him in the foyer, hands clasped politely, wearing a soft dress she'd bought on sale after working an extra shift. She was nervous but excited, hopeful in a way that made his chest feel tight. His mother approached first, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So this is Lauren," she said. "Erwin mentioned you work several jobs?" Lauren had replied with grace. "Just 2 at the moment." His father raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. His mother asked questions wrapped in polite dismissal. Someone at the dinner table made a comment about different worlds, and another muttered something about fit. Erwin remembered sitting there, jaw tight, heart pounding, every instinct in him screaming to speak up. But he didn't. He stayed quiet, trapped in the rules he'd been raised under. Don't embarrass the family. Don't argue at the table. Don't disrupt the image. The silence he chose became the wound she couldn't ignore. The memory hit him hard, so vivid it felt like he was reliving it. Lauren stood in his apartment, her hands shaking slightly as she packed a small bag. The lamp beside her cast a warm glow, but her face looked tired, older than the weeks they had been together. "Erwin, I'm not asking you to fight your family," she said, trying to keep her voice stable. "I'm asking you not to sit there and act like their words don't matter." "They don't," he insisted, though his tone lacked conviction. "I didn't want to escalate things." "You didn't want to upset them," she corrected gently. He said nothing, and that silence was louder than any argument. Lauren's eyes softened, not with love, but with resignation. I can't be with someone who won't stand beside me when it matters. I can't build anything on silence. I'm trying, he whispered. I know, she said, but your trying still leaves me alone at the table. Those were the last words she said before she walked out. He didn't chase her. He didn't know how. Every part of him had been raised to stay still, to keep the peace, to maintain control, even as losing her shattered that very control. While Erwin stood in the present, wrestling with regret, Lauren, miles away, replayed the same night in her mind as she put Emma down for a nap. She remembered feeling humiliated at that dinner table, not because of the comments themselves, but because Erwin never looked at her with reassurance. He never squeezed her hand under the table, never stepped in, never said a single word to counter what was said about her background or worth. His silence isolated her. She remembered walking out of his apartment trying to keep her dignity intact, reminding herself not to cry, telling herself she deserved more than having to prove she belonged in someone's life. She remembered the ache in her chest when the elevator doors closed, the proof that he wouldn't follow. And she remembered the moment she discovered she was pregnant, weeks later, alone in her bathroom, staring at the test in disbelief. That memory belonged to her alone. And now, years later, the man she once loved stood in a park holding a child who mirrored him, and she was no closer to knowing how to face the truth. Erwin exhaled slowly, steadying himself. The memories were buttons he had never learned how to handle, but today they didn't wait for permission. Lauren's face as she walked away with Emma still burned in his mind. Fear, anger, a wound reopening. He hadn't fixed anything. He hadn't defended her then. Now he didn't even know how to ask the questions forming in his throat. But one thing had changed. He couldn't walk away this time. Not now. Not after seeing that mark. Not after feeling a connection that defied reason. His world had shifted, and the past he buried had risen all at once. And he knew. The next time he saw Lauren, nothing between them would be the same. Long before Erwin ever became a memory she tried to bury. Long before Emma came into her life with her bright smile and stubborn little spirit. Lauren lived in a world held together by grit, humor, and the quiet strength passed down through her family. Her childhood home wasn't grand. It wasn't quiet. It wasn't polished. But it was steady. Her mother, a woman who worked hard enough for 2 lifetimes, kept a simple rule in their home. We don't quit. We adjust. It wasn't just a motto. It was a survival strategy. Lauren learned early that life didn't pause for anyone. Bills didn't wait. Work didn't wait. Challenges didn't wait. But quitting was never an option, not in her house. There was always a way forward, even if that meant changing direction, sacrificing comfort, or starting over. She didn't grow up with luxury, but she grew up with clarity. Work hard. Stand tall. Protect your dignity. Don't expect the world to hand you anything. These values shaped her long before Erwin ever stepped into her life. Lauren didn't choose a packed schedule because she loved being tired. She chose it because she wanted freedom. Financial freedom, emotional freedom, life freedom. After graduating from college with a degree that cost more than she earned in a year, she found herself in the same position as many young adults, a stack of loan payments and no safety net. So she created her own. During the day, she worked as an administrative assistant at a local firm in Jacksonville. She was the kind of employee who never missed deadlines, the one people relied on when things got overwhelming. She listened, organized, handled chaos with humor instead of complaints. Then at night, while everyone else unwound, she changed into a black uniform and tied her hair into a neat bun for catering shifts. Weddings, corporate events, banquets, she carried trays, balanced drinks, memorized seating arrangements, and perfected the art of staying pleasant even when her feet cramped. On weekends, when exhaustion begged her to slow down, she picked up event assistant jobs to keep extra money flowing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. Her coworkers admired her. Her supervisors trusted her. Her friends wondered how she stayed optimistic despite the pace of her life. The truth was simple. Lauren never wanted to depend on anyone. Not emotionally, not financially, not for stability. She wanted to build a life she could stand on without fear of it collapsing. Despite everything she juggled, Lauren carried warmth wherever she went. It was impossible not to notice. She laughed easily. She joked with coworkers even during the busiest shifts. She teased customers gently when they looked too serious. She had a way of making crowded rooms feel lighter. Her humor wasn't a shield. It was an extension of the strength she learned at home. She didn't believe in masking pain with pretended positivity. She believed in facing life honestly and choosing joy where she could. People liked being around her. She radiated confidence rooted in reality, not ego. And although she never said it out loud, she hoped one day she'd meet someone who matched that energy. Not someone perfect, but someone steady. Someone who respected her work ethic and understood the world she came from. She didn't need saving. She didn't need someone wealthy. She didn't need someone to carry her burdens. She needed partnership. She needed a teammate. She needed respect. It was a simple desire, but life rarely gives simple answers. Even with her tough exterior, Lauren had a soft corner she didn't show often. She believed in relationships built on communication, mutual support, shared responsibility, emotional accountability. She didn't want a fantasy. She wanted someone who valued her for who she was, not who they wanted her to become. Her mother used to tell her, "Work is important, but don't forget to leave space for someone who can meet you where you are." Lauren tried. She dated occasionally, but nothing ever felt balanced. Some men were intimidated by her independence. Some expected her to slow down her ambition. Some mistook her kindness for weakness. So she focused on what she could control, her career, her finances, her goals. She wasn't waiting for a love story. She wasn't chasing romance, but she wasn't closed to it either. She simply refused to lose herself to make room for someone else. Her life was full, balanced in a way only she understood. And although it wasn't easy, she felt proud of the world she was building. Which is why the night she met Erwin felt so strange, unexpected, out of place, a spark she didn't ask for but couldn't ignore. But that moment doesn't belong yet. It's coming soon. Right now, all that matters is this. Lauren was not broken when Erwin met her. She was not lost. She was not searching for rescue. She was a woman with strength, humor, values, and resilience. And everything that happened next would challenge every part of that foundation. Her story wasn't shaped by Erwin. It existed long before him. And that's exactly why their worlds collided the way they did. The night of the Jacksonville Gala wasn't supposed to be memorable. For Lauren, it was just another shift, another chance to pick up extra hours, make a little more money, and remind herself that discipline mattered more than comfort. She arrived early, dressed in the standard catering uniform, pressed black shirt, black pants, hair tied neatly away from her face. She checked the event notes, counted trays, arranged glasses, and exchanged playful remarks with a few coworkers. To her, these nights always blended together. Soft music, polished floors, guests who talked more than they listened. But that night felt different before she even stepped through the ballroom doors. "Big crowd tonight," one coworker whispered as they walked in. "Everyone important is here." Lauren smiled. "Great, more people to accidentally bump into me while pretending I'm invisible." The coworker laughed, and Lauren rolled her shoulders back. Humor kept her steady. Humor kept her light. She didn't let pressure touch her the way it touched others. Inside the ballroom, the atmosphere was expensive. Glittering chandeliers, a live band, tables decorated to impress sponsors. People in suits and gowns gathered in clusters, smiling politely, chatting like they were being graded on elegance. Lauren moved through the room with the ease of someone who had worked hundreds of similar events. Balancing trays didn't intimidate her. Smiling didn't exhaust her. And interacting with people, no matter how stiff or formal, was something she had mastered. She greeted guests, offered hors d'oeuvres, exchanged brief pleasantries. Then, while walking past a table of executives, she heard a coworker tell a joke that made her laugh, really laugh. The sound lifted out of her effortlessly, a warm burst that floated across the room. It wasn't a delicate laugh. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't shaped to fit into the environment. It was real. And that's when she noticed him. Across the room, a man stood near one of the tall windows, tall, composed, expression unreadable. He wasn't mingling, not exactly. He was standing with the kind of posture people used when they felt watched, even if no one was paying attention. Their eyes met for less than a second, but something in his gaze held her in place, something sharp, curious, almost startled by the sound of her laughter. Lauren blinked, shrugged it off, and kept moving. Rich men stared all the time. It meant nothing. At least, that's what she told herself. About 20 minutes later, she approached the group he was standing with. They were discussing business strategies she didn't understand and didn't care to. She simply needed to offer food and move along. She stepped forward, tray lifted slightly, voice polite. "Good evening. Would you like to try?" He turned toward her fully this time. Up close, she noticed more, the tailored suit, the clean lines of his features, the steady eyes that looked like they rarely softened. And yet they softened now, just a little. Lauren held the tray out between them. "Help yourselves," she said with a friendly tone. But he didn't reach for the food, not immediately. He was staring again, almost studying her, like her presence interrupted a thought he didn't realize he had. She arched a brow. "You can take one, you know. It's not a test." That brought the smallest shift in his expression, something close to amusement, but restrained. He reached slowly, selecting one of the appetizers. "Thank you," he said. His voice was smoother than she expected, controlled but quiet, like he measured every word before speaking. She nodded and took a step to move on, but something held her in place. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, as if standing straight could prevent the room from moving around him. "Why do you look like you're scared to breathe?" she asked before she could stop herself. He blinked, startled. Lauren smirked. "You're standing so stiff I'm afraid if someone bumps into you you'll shatter." His mouth opened slightly, barely, but enough for her to recognize genuine surprise. No one talked to him like that. She could see it immediately. His silence made the whole moment even funnier to her. "Relax," she added lightly. "You're at a gala, not defending the nation." One of the executives beside him coughed awkwardly, unsure whether to laugh or pretend he didn't hear her. Lauren kept moving, but not before she caught the faintest sound behind her, a small exhale that might have been a laugh he was fighting to contain. As the evening went on, she continued working, but she felt his gaze more than once. It wasn't intrusive. It wasn't unsettling. It was curious. Every time she turned, he was watching her with the same expression, calm, reserved, yet undeniably focused. She wasn't used to that. People looked at her all the time, but their intentions were transparent. With Erwin, it didn't feel like that. It felt like he was trying to understand something he couldn't explain. When she passed by again, he stepped slightly into her path, not blocking, just close enough for her to pause. "You're different from everyone here," he said quietly, as if it was an observation he couldn't help but share. She lifted her chin. "Is that your way of saying I don't fit in?" He shook his head quickly. "No, not at all." He hesitated, then added, "It's refreshing." Lauren raised a brow, intrigued despite herself. "You know, compliments sound less like accidents when people deliver them intentionally." He stared at her for a moment, longer than polite, and she watched something in his expression shift. Not attraction, not admiration. Something gentler, something deeper. She had disrupted something in him without trying, and he had no idea what to do with that. Before she could respond, one of her coworkers called her name from across the room. Lauren stepped back. "Enjoy the rest of your night, sir." She turned and walked away. Erwin didn't move for several seconds. He stayed rooted exactly where she left him, watching her disappear into the crowd, realizing he had just experienced a feeling he couldn't categorize. A feeling that didn't align with his upbringing, his expectations, or the orderly life he lived. A spark that shouldn't have existed. A spark he couldn't ignore. Erwin never expected to see her again after the gala. Lauren assumed the same. In her world, men in expensive suits didn't circle back to the catering staff. Their paths crossed because of work, nothing more. But Erwin didn't return to his usual life easily after that night. Something lingered. The sound of her laugh. The way she spoke without fear. The way she disrupted his composure without insulting him. The way she didn't treat him like a title or an accomplishment. For a man who lived in a world shaped by formality and silent expectations, she left a mark he didn't know how to shake off. So when he reached out to the catering company a week later, asking for the name of the woman who worked the gala, even he didn't recognize the version of himself doing it. Lauren nearly dropped her phone when she received the unexpected message, "This is Erwin, from last week's event. I'd like to take you to coffee, if you're open to it." She stared at the text for a full minute. Her coworker laughed. "Girl, you broke a billionaire by teasing his posture. That's impressive." Lauren rolled her eyes. "I didn't break him. I just startled him." "That's worse," her friend replied. "Rich men don't get startled." Lauren didn't respond right away, not because she wasn't interested, but because interest wasn't enough for her. She had responsibilities, dreams, and a pace of life that didn't leave much room for men who couldn't keep up. But something about Erwin stayed with her, something quietly sincere beneath all the control he carried. So she said yes. They met at a small cafe near the river, neutral ground, nothing fancy. Lauren arrived before him, sipping water while reminding herself not to overthink anything. When Erwin walked in, he didn't scan the room like someone used to attention. He looked directly at her, almost relieved to see she hadn't changed her mind. "You came," he said softly as he sat down. "You invited me," she replied with a small smile. The conversation felt awkward at first, not because they didn't like each other, but because their worlds didn't share many similarities. She talked about working 2 jobs. He talked about managing a company. She teased him for speaking like he was addressing a board meeting. He tried, and failed, not to look flustered. But slowly, something shifted. Lauren asked him real questions, not about money or status, but about his childhood, his interests, what made him choose his career path. And Erwin realized he had no practice answering questions that didn't revolve around performance. He found himself confessing small truths. I read a lot, but mostly in private. I don't attend many events unless I have to. I'm trying to learn how to relax, but I'm not very good at it. Lauren laughed. I can tell. He blinked, confused. She grinned. You sit like someone placed a book on your head when you were 5 and told you it could never fall off. Erwin exhaled, a sound dangerously close to a laugh. No one ever made him laugh like that. No one ever tried. Coffee turned into dinner the following week. Dinner turned into a walk through the city the week after. Lauren learned quickly that Erwin wasn't cold. He was cautious. He didn't know how to express what he felt, but he listened deeply. He remembered everything she said, every detail, every preference, every small story. He surprised her often. He ordered her favorite drink without asking. He learned which nights she worked late and sent encouraging messages. He asked about her mother, her goals, her plans for the future. There was nothing grand or flashy about his gestures. He showed care in steady, deliberate ways. Lauren didn't fall quickly, but she fell genuinely. Erwin, on the other hand, fell silently, quietly, in a way that made him study her as if she were a language he wanted to learn fluently. One night, as they sat on a bench overlooking the river, Lauren shared a memory about her upbringing. Growing up, we didn't have much, but we had pride. My mom refused to let us feel small, even when life tried to make us feel that way. Erwin listened, his eyes softer than usual. She sounds strong, he said. She is, Lauren replied. She taught me to stand tall, even when the world looks down. Something shifted in Erwin's expression, not pity, not admiration, but recognition. A quiet understanding crossed between them. I didn't grow up with that, he said quietly. I grew up with rules, expectations, awards, everything, except emotion. Lauren tilted her head, studying him. So what made you reach out to me? He looked at her for a long moment, then said the truest thing he'd ever admitted. You felt real. Lauren wasn't someone who flustered easily, but that answer disarmed her. It was the most honest thing he had said. That was the moment her guard lowered. As the weeks passed, the connection between them deepened, not through dramatic moments but through quiet, consistent presence. Erwin showed her sides of himself he didn't show anyone. The way he paused when overwhelmed. The way he calmed when she teased him. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. Lauren, in return, shared her world in doses he could handle. Her sense of humor. Her work stories. Her vulnerability, shown only when trust was earned. There were gentle touches, hands brushing, a light touch on her back as they walked, moments when he leaned closer without realizing it. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. It was a slow burn, one that neither expected, one that didn't fit into the worlds either of them came from. But it felt right. It felt balanced. It felt like a beginning. Before we continue this unfolding love story, take a moment to like this video and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach more wonderful viewers just like you. Lauren had been nervous the moment Erwin invited her to meet his family, not because she doubted herself, but because she understood the world he came from. She didn't grow up in large homes with polished floors and rooms that echoed. She didn't come from a place where success was measured in acquisitions and legacy. But she believed in showing up with dignity, and she believed Erwin's intentions were good. So she said yes. When they arrived at his parents' home for a small formal dinner, the first thing she noticed was the silence. Not peaceful silence, but the kind that came from people who valued formality over warmth. Erwin stood slightly straighter than usual, his expression composed in a way she had only seen around strangers. That alone made her chest tighten. She reached for his hand briefly. He squeezed back, but even that gesture felt rehearsed. A housekeeper opened the door, and Lauren stepped into a space that smelled of polished wood, old money, and expectations. Erwin's parents entered with poised smiles. Mother, father, Erwin said gently, this is Lauren. Lauren stepped forward, offering a respectful nod. It's nice to meet you both. Thank you for having me. His mother's gaze dropped to Lauren's attire, a simple but elegant dress she had worked overtime to afford. Her lips curled so subtly, Lauren wondered if she imagined it. "Welcome," his mother said. "Erwin tells us you work quite a bit." Lauren matched the woman's tone with grace. "Yes, I do," his father added. "2 jobs, isn't it? That must be exhausting." Lauren smiled politely. "It's honest work. I enjoy staying productive." Erwin shifted uncomfortably at his father's tone. Lauren noticed. Dinner was served in a dining room large enough to seat 20, though only 4 chairs were filled. The table looked more formal than anything Lauren had ever sat at. Multiple forks, fragile glassware, folded napkins that resembled artwork. She sat beside Erwin. She could feel him trying to ease the tension, trying to frame her in the best light, trying to navigate a world where he'd never needed to bridge perspectives before. But his family made no effort. The questions came lightly, floated with smiles, but carried weight beneath the surface. "Where did you attend school again? What field is your degree in? And catering, do you plan to continue doing that long term? Your background must be quite different from ours." Lauren felt each question land like a small stone. Not enough to injure, enough to bruise. She answered calmly, respectfully, never lowering herself, never raising her voice. She refused to shrink, but what pierced her wasn't their tone. It was Erwin's silence. She waited for him to shift the conversation, to redirect, to defend her subtly, even with a gentle hand squeeze or a supportive comment. He didn't, not because he didn't care, because he didn't know how. His upbringing had trained him to keep harmony at the table, to let difficult moments slide rather than confront them. But silence in that moment felt like abandonment. His mother took a sip of wine, then asked casually, "Your family must find it admirable that you're dating someone like Erwin." Erwin's fork paused midair. Lauren kept her voice steady. "My family admires hard work, respect, and character." His father gave a soft exhale, the kind that suggested disapproval disguised as amusement. The first crack appeared in that moment, not in their relationship, but in Lauren's trust. She saw the way Erwin swallowed hard but still said nothing. She saw how he shifted his gaze downward, choosing composure over confrontation. She saw the man she cared about choosing silence again. The rest of dinner blurred together. She stayed polite, dignified, gracious, because her mother raised her to never lose herself in the presence of people who tried to make her feel small. But inside, she felt pieces shifting. Pieces unraveling in ways she didn't want to admit. As they prepared to leave, Erwin's mother touched his arm lightly. "She seems sweet," she said, "but different worlds don't always blend well." Her eyes slid to Lauren briefly. Something tightened in Lauren's chest. Erwin muttered, "Good night, Mother," and ushered Lauren out the door. But the damage had settled long before they stepped outside. When they reached the car, Lauren didn't speak immediately. Erwin opened her door, but she paused before getting in. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded once, but the look in her eyes said everything he wasn't brave enough to ask. She got into the car. He closed the door. And as he walked around to the driver's side, the distance between them felt heavier than it had all night. Inside the car, neither spoke. Lauren stared out the window. Erwin gripped the steering wheel tighter than he realized. The silence between them, the same silence he grew up learning to use, was now the thing tearing open the first fracture in their fragile bond. The night wasn't loud, but something broke quietly, and neither of them knew how to fix it. The drive back to Erwin's apartment was quiet, too quiet. Lauren wasn't the type to stew in silence. She spoke her mind when something mattered. But tonight she wasn't just upset, she was wounded in a way she didn't want to expose. Erwin kept glancing at her, hoping she'd speak first, hoping he could somehow fix something he didn't fully understand. But Lauren's posture said everything. Her shoulders were square, her arms crossed lightly, not in anger but in self-protection. When he pulled into his apartment garage, she unbuckled her seatbelt slowly, almost mechanically. "Lauren," he said quietly, "can we talk before we go up?" She paused with her hand on the door, eyes focused forward. "Talk about what?" He exhaled shakily. "Tonight. My parents. I know things felt tense. She turned to face him fully for the first time since they left the house. "Erwin, they were dismissive and rude." He swallowed hard. "I know. You didn't say anything." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The words were there, but they weren't enough. Lauren shook her head gently. "Let's go upstairs." They walked side by side into the elevator, but they felt miles apart. Erwin pressed the button for his floor, and the soft hum of the elevator filled the space between them. Lauren finally broke the silence. "Do you understand why tonight hurt? He nodded slowly. I do. No, she said softly. You understand that I'm upset. That's not the same thing. He glanced at her, and the desperation inside him built quietly. Tell me how I can fix it. She smiled, sad, tired, not mocking. Erwin, it's not something you fix with one conversation. He didn't respond. When they entered the apartment, Lauren walked in first, placing her purse on the kitchen counter. Erwin stood by the door, unsure whether to come closer or give her space. She turned toward him, leaning lightly on the counter for support, not physically, but emotionally. Your parents don't respect me, she said plainly. That's fine. People have opinions. I can handle disapproval. Erwin nodded, listening. What I can't handle, she continued, her voice steady but soft, is standing beside the man I care about and feeling like I'm standing alone. Erwin's heart tightened. Lauren, that's not what I wanted. I know, she whispered, but intention doesn't erase impact. Her words hit him in a way he wasn't ready for. He stepped forward. I wasn't silent because I agreed with them. I didn't want to make things worse. She met his eyes. Worse for who? Me or them? Erwin froze. That was the question he never prepared for. The question that exposed the truth he didn't want to face. His silence protected the wrong people. Lauren saw the answer in his hesitation, and she looked away, blinking to steady herself. I'm not asking you to argue with your family, she said softly. I'm asking you not to leave me exposed. He took another step toward her. I would never abandon you. She let out a breath that trembled at the edges. You didn't have to say anything dramatic. You didn't have to stand up and give a speech. All you had to do was look at me, squeeze my hand, redirect the conversation. Show me that I wasn't alone. Erwin lowered his head. I don't always know how to respond in the moment. I know, she said. I've known since the day I met you. Your world taught you to stay quiet, stay composed. But being with someone requires effort. It requires choosing them even when it's uncomfortable. He reached out, slowly, carefully, as if touching her too quickly might cause her to break. But she stepped back, not harshly, just enough for him to feel the shift. That's the problem, she added. I need someone who chooses me out loud, not in silence. Lauren, I care about you, he said, his voice cracking. You mean more to me than you know. She closed her eyes for a moment. I believe you. But caring isn't enough if it doesn't show up when it matters. Erwin felt something inside him sink, quiet, heavy, irreversible. Are you ending things? He asked, barely audible. Lauren looked at him with an expression he had never seen from her before, deep affection mixed with resignation. I don't want to, she said honestly. But I'm losing myself trying to fit into your world. I feel small in spaces where I should feel supported. He stepped closer again. You're not small. You've never been small. Then why didn't you defend me? His breath caught. He opened his mouth, again, searching for words he didn't have. Every reason he had was shaped by fear, by upbringing, by habit. None of them were good enough. Silence filled the room. Lauren nodded slowly. That's what I thought. She picked up her purse. Erwin's voice shook. Please, don't go. She hesitated at the door, turning back one last time. Erwin, love shouldn't feel like begging for space. He flinched, physically, visibly. Lauren softened, but she didn't step back toward him. You're not a bad man. You're a good man who never learned how to stand between the person he loves and the people who judge her. He took a shaky breath. I can learn. She gave him a sad, gentle smile. Maybe. But I can't be your practice ground. Her hand touched the door. He moved toward her instinctively, panic rising, not loud, not wild, but deep and quiet. Lauren, please, stay. Tell me what to do differently. She shook her head. If I have to tell you how to respect me, then it won't come from your heart. It'll be out of fear of losing me. That's not love. The moment that could have saved everything hung in the air between them. A moment where Erwin could have fought, not loudly, but with conviction. A moment where he could have said, I choose you, I'll protect you, I'll stand with you. But he said nothing, not because he didn't feel it, but because silence was all he had ever been taught. Lauren opened the door. Erwin whispered, Don't go. She met his eyes one last time. I already did. And then she was gone. The quiet in the apartment didn't just settle, it consumed. Erwin stood in the middle of the room, hand frozen mid-air, breath shaking, heart collapsing in on itself. This was the moment that broke them. Not with shouting, not with betrayal, but with silence. And too late, Erwin finally understood. Silence is a choice, one he would regret for years. When Lauren walked out of Irwin's apartment that night, her chest felt tight, but her steps were steady. She didn't run. She didn't slam the door. She didn't fall apart. She held herself with the same dignity she had always carried. But inside she felt a quiet collapse, not the kind that made noise, but the kind that left a hollow ache where hope used to be. By the time she reached her car, her hands trembled. She gripped the steering wheel, trying to steady her breath. She told herself she made the right choice. She told herself she couldn't stay in a relationship that dimmed her spirit. She told herself she deserved to be loved without hesitation. All of it was true. But truth didn't soften heartbreak. For days afterward, Lauren moved through her routine on autopilot. She worked her jobs, smiled politely, and laughed when she needed to. But every quiet moment reminded her of the life she could have had with Irwin. If he had simply stood with her, she didn't call him. He didn't call her. Two worlds drifting apart without closure. Nearly 3 weeks passed before Lauren realized something was wrong. She woke up exhausted, more than usual. Her appetite changed. A sudden wave of dizziness hit her during her shift, forcing her to step outside for fresh air. At first, she assumed it was stress, heartbreak, work, the emotional weight of everything. But when she looked at the calendar later that night, sitting alone on the edge of her bed, her breath caught. The dates didn't add up. A cold, trembling awareness swept through her body. She pressed a hand to her stomach, not out of certainty, but out of fear and disbelief. "No," she whispered. "Not now. Not like this." But the realization grew stronger with every passing second. She went to the store before closing, bought a test, then sat in her bathroom staring at the unopened box for nearly 20 minutes. When she finally gathered the courage to take it, she placed it on the counter and waited. The seconds stretched impossibly long, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. When she looked down, the results stole her breath. Positive. Lauren covered her mouth with both hands, tears forming instantly, not tears of pure sadness, not pure joy, but something heavier, deeper, more complex. She sank onto the bathroom floor, pulling her knees to her chest, letting the reality settle over her. She was pregnant. She was carrying Irwin's child. She was alone. Lauren sat there for what felt like hours, the test still on the counter, mocking her fear and hope all at once. Her thoughts were sharp and tangled. What would his parents say? Would they judge my baby the way they judged me? Would Irwin defend us this time? Or would he stay quiet again? Would my child grow up feeling unwanted? She pressed a hand over her stomach again. "I won't let anyone make you feel small," she whispered. "Not ever." Her voice broke, but her resolve strengthened. She could imagine Irwin's face if she told him. The shock, the confusion, the guilt. But she could also imagine something worse. Him wanting to be involved, but failing to protect their child from his world. She couldn't let history repeat itself. She couldn't let her baby grow up feeling like a guest in their father's life. She couldn't raise a child in a family that viewed her as less. The pain of that thought cut deeper than the breakup itself. Lauren knew what she had to do. Not because she didn't love Irwin. She did. Not because he didn't deserve to know. He did. Not because she wanted to punish him. She didn't. She chose silence because she loved her baby more than anything she had ever loved before. Silence gave her control. Silence protected her dignity. Silence protected her child. "If he couldn't stand up for me," she whispered through tears, "how will he stand up for someone even more vulnerable?" Her voice trembled, but her resolve solidified into something unshakable. She would do this alone. She would give her baby a home filled with love, not judgment, not coded remarks, not silence. She wasn't abandoning Irwin. She was protecting her child. The months that followed were challenging, but Lauren pushed through with the same strength that had carried her through every hardship before. She worked carefully, adjusted her schedules, saved every penny she could. Some nights were harder than others, swelling ankles, back pain, fear creeping into her heart. But she talked to her baby. Every night. "You're already loved. You're going to be strong. We're going to be okay." Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she laughed at the little kicks that surprised her. Sometimes she held her belly and imagined what her baby would look like. She didn't tell Irwin. She never reached out. Not because she hated him. She didn't. Not because she was bitter. She wasn't. But because she couldn't risk her baby feeling unwanted in the world he grew up in. The day Emma was born, Lauren felt something she hadn't felt in months: peace. The delivery room lights were warm. Her breathing was steady. The nurse encouraged her gently, and after intense hours of labor, a soft cry filled the room. When they placed Emma on her chest, Lauren's tears flowed instantly. The tiny baby had soft cheeks, bright eyes, and a small mark on her shoulder, a birthmark shaped just like Irwin's. Lauren brushed her thumb over Emma's cheek, overwhelmed by love and fear and awe all at once. "Hi, my angel," she whispered. "It's you and me now." Emma calmed almost immediately at the sound of her voice, nestling into her chest. Lauren kissed the top of her head. "I don't know what the future holds, but you will grow in love. I promise you that." She held Emma tightly, a promise forming, a bond sealed, and deep in her heart, she prayed no one from Irwin's world would ever hurt her daughter the way they had hurt her. In that moment, she didn't know that one day Irwin would stand in a park, holding the same child, trembling from the truth he wasn't ready to face. She didn't know that silence would eventually collide with fate. But she knew this. Emma deserved a world built on love, not fear. And Lauren vowed to give her exactly that. Motherhood didn't arrive gently. It arrived with weight, responsibility, joy, fear, sleepless nights, and the kind of love that breaks open a new part of you. Lauren learned that within the first week of bringing Emma home. The apartment felt smaller now, but warmer. The late-night feedings were tiring, but strangely comforting. The world outside felt bigger and more uncertain, but inside their little home, Lauren found a peace she hadn't expected. Raising Emma wasn't easy, not for a woman working 2 jobs, not for someone who carried the weight of raising a child alone. But Lauren faced everything with the same mindset she grew up with: we don't quit, we adjust. After maternity leave ended, Lauren's life became a choreography of careful timing. She worked her daytime administrative job while Emma stayed with a trusted sitter, and in the evenings she picked up shorter catering shifts whenever she could. Her coworkers admired her discipline. Her supervisors relied on her more than ever. But Lauren's real strength showed when she walked through her apartment door at night, exhausted beyond words, and still managed to lift Emma up with a smile. Emma would squeal in delight, arms reaching, giggles filling the room. Those moments erased the fatigue instantly. Lauren often whispered to Emma during bedtime feedings, "It's you and me, baby girl. We're a team." Some nights, she fell asleep still wearing her work clothes, Emma curled on her chest. Other nights, she sat on the floor building blocks with Emma, laughing as the toddler knocked every tower over just to clap proudly afterward. Lauren never complained. Being a mother didn't take her away from herself. It deepened who she already was. Emma grew quickly, quicker than Lauren was emotionally ready for. She had bright eyes that always seemed to be studying the world, as if she carried a curiosity too big for her small body. She loved tapping her tiny palms on anything that made noise, bouncing when music played, toddling toward people who radiated calm energy, mimicking expressions with surprising accuracy. And she had a stubborn streak, not difficult, not wild, just firm. When she wanted something, she leaned forward with determination. When she didn't, she turned her head decisively. Lauren laughed every time. "You get that from me," she'd tease, though deep down she knew some of it didn't come from her at all. There were moments, subtle, sudden, that made Lauren pause. When Emma furrowed her brow while studying a toy, the expression was identical to Irwin's focused look. When Emma observed a room silently before warming up to people, it echoed Irwin's reserved nature. When Emma showed a calmness beyond her age, especially around strangers, Lauren felt a quiet ache in her chest. These things weren't proof. They weren't confirmations, but they were reminders. Reminders of a man she once cared for. Reminders of a world that hurt her. Reminders of a love story that ended too early. Lauren never told Emma any of this, of course. She wouldn't burden a child with adult history, but some nights she held her daughter close and murmured, "You're going to have the best parts of me, and the best parts of him, even if he never knows." She meant it tenderly, not bitterly. Their days fell into a rhythm. Morning, Emma babbling while Lauren prepared breakfast. Sippy cups falling, cereal scattered, small hands patting her knee for attention. Midday, Lauren at work, checking her phone during her break to see pictures sent by the sitter. Pictures of Emma smiling, drooling, or proudly showing a toy. Evening, Lauren singing softly while cooking. Emma toddling around the living room, leaving toys in every corner, both of them dancing to music from Lauren's phone. Night, bubbles in the bathtub, warm pajamas, Emma fighting sleep but losing quickly when Lauren cradled her. One night, Emma placed her tiny palm on Lauren's cheek and held it there, gazing up with calm, bright eyes. Something in that moment made Lauren freeze. It wasn't just affection. It was recognition, something deeper, something inherited. Emma's eyes looked exactly like Irwin's when he was trying to understand something complicated. Lauren closed her eyes briefly, pressing her cheek into Emma's hand. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "I'll make sure you're always okay." She kissed her daughter's forehead, holding her until she drifted off. There were small victories Lauren cherished. The first time Emma said mama, the first time she walked, the first time she danced without losing balance, the first time Lauren saw pure joy on her daughter's face. These moments reminded her that despite the exhaustion, despite the financial strain, despite the loneliness, she had created something beautiful, something that brought her purpose every day. And if she had to choose again, she would choose the same path, even if it meant sacrificing the comfort of having someone else there. Lauren never admitted it to anyone, but some nights, after putting Emma to sleep, she sat alone on the couch wondering, would things have been different if Irwin had defended me? Would he have embraced fatherhood? Would Emma have grown up with two parents who loved her deeply? But she pushed those questions away. They didn't help. They didn't change anything. She wasn't raising Emma on regret. She was raising her on love. Lauren worked, saved, sacrificed, and smiled through every challenge, because her daughter deserved a mother who showed strength without bitterness. And she delivered that every single day. Little did she know, the world she built so carefully, the quiet life she shaped with devotion, was about to collide with a past she believed was gone forever. But for now, she held Emma close and whispered promises into her soft hair. Their world was small, but it was full, and Lauren would protect it at all costs. Irwin had always been good at returning to routine. It was what he'd been trained to do. Keep moving, stay composed, focus on the next task. So after Lauren walked out of his apartment, he returned to work the very next morning. No one at the office noticed anything unusual. He greeted staff with the same calm nod. He reviewed reports with the same precision. He made decisions with the same steady voice. But something beneath the surface had shifted. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, controlled, the kind of ache that settles into your bones and refuses to leave. Irwin had always thrown himself into work, but after Lauren left, his dedication became something else entirely. He stayed later. He arrived earlier. He filled every gap in his schedule until there was no room for thought. His team admired his discipline. Investors praised his focus. Colleagues saw him as unstoppable. But none of them knew the truth. He wasn't chasing success. He was running from silence. Whenever he sat still, memories slipped in. Lauren laughing across a cafe table. Lauren teasing him about his posture. Lauren squeezing his hand during a late-night walk. Lauren whispering that she needed someone who chose her out loud. He tried to push those images away, but they clung to him like shadows. Within the next 2 years, Irwin's company reached milestones executives dream about. They launched major projects, expanded partnerships, and earned national recognition. At every event, people congratulated him with pride. "You've outdone yourself again. You're building a legacy. You must feel proud." He smiled politely, thanked them, and accepted every handshake. But when he returned to his penthouse at night, he walked into a space that echoed. Success didn't comfort him. Quiet didn't soothe him. Luxury didn't warm the air. He realized something he had never admitted even to himself. He had built a life that looked impressive from the outside but felt empty on the inside. People encouraged Irwin to start dating again. "You're too young to be alone forever. You need someone who understands your world. Plenty of women would be honored to be with you." He tried, not enthusiastically, but out of obligation, to others, not himself. He went on a few dinners with women who shared his social status, who spoke with elegance, who navigated formal gatherings with ease. But something was always missing. Whenever a woman laughed softly, he remembered Lauren's loud, joyful laugh. Whenever someone complimented him timidly, he remembered Lauren teasing him without hesitation. Whenever a woman tried to impress him with accomplishments, he remembered Lauren's quiet confidence, the kind that came from surviving real challenges. These comparisons weren't fair, he knew that. But they came naturally, uninvited. Dates ended politely. Numbers were exchanged but never used. Conversations stayed shallow. Irwin didn't say it aloud, but deep down he understood. He wasn't just missing companionship. He was missing her. The way she made him feel alive. The way she challenged him. The way she softened parts of him he didn't know needed softening. Irwin wasn't used to loneliness. He wasn't used to needing anyone. But the more time passed, the more he felt the absence of something he couldn't name. It wasn't the absence of a partner. It was the absence of connection. He noticed things he had ignored before. Couples holding hands on sidewalks, parents pushing strollers, toddlers running in parks, little hands gripping their father's pant leg. And every time he witnessed moments like that, something inside him stirred. Not longing, not jealousy, just a quiet ache, an ache he didn't understand. One afternoon, he stopped at a red light and saw a little girl on the sidewalk holding her mother's hand. She turned her head, saw Erwin through the window, and waved with all the innocence in the world. He froze. The light turned green, but he didn't move until the car behind him honked. His reactions confused him. Why was he suddenly so affected by children? He brushed it off at first, but the feeling came back again. And again, late at night, Erwin sometimes found himself staring at the quiet city from his balcony, wondering what might have been different if he had spoken up that night at dinner. He replayed scenes the way people replay old movies. Lauren trying to stay dignified, his mother's pointed remarks, his father's disapproval, the silence that settled between them. Afterward, Lauren backing toward the door with the saddest smile he had ever seen. Some nights, he whispered to himself, "I should have chosen you. I should have fought." But regret doesn't turn into action when no one else hears it. Around the 2-year mark, something inside him changed. The numbness didn't disappear completely, but it thinned out, replaced by something quieter and heavier. A longing for something real, something meaningful, something he didn't know how to build alone. He didn't know that life was quietly rearranging itself. He didn't know that his path would cross with Lauren's again. He didn't know that the ache he felt around children was not coincidence. It was blood calling out to blood. But life would reveal that soon. For now, Erwin continued living behind polished walls and perfect routines, unaware that the universe had already chosen the moment he would finally face everything he tried to outrun. And that moment was coming faster than he realized. St. John's Park was one of the few places where Lauren felt she could breathe. The open field, shaded benches, and steady breeze gave her a brief escape from work, bills, and responsibilities. And for Emma, the park was magic. A world big enough for exploration, but small enough for Lauren to watch her every move. This morning felt calm. Emma toddled ahead holding a small snack container, pausing every few steps to look at birds, point at leaves, or babble proudly at squirrels that refused to come close. Lauren smiled, taking in the sight. "Slow down, little explorer. Mama's legs aren't as fast as yours." Emma giggled and lifted her arms halfway, a gesture Lauren recognized. "I know, you want up again. But you said you were a big girl today." Emma resumed toddling, happily distracted by the grass brushing her shoes. Lauren followed closely, stretched thin yet grateful. After a long week of double shifts, she cherished these peaceful moments more than anything. At the far end of the park, tents and tables were set up. People in business attire mingled among volunteers arranging boxes of supplies. There were banners, tables lined with donation bins, and a small stage for speakers. Lauren kept her distance at first. Events like this were usually for companies and donors. Emma, however, was fascinated by the balloons tied near the tents. She pointed at them and squealed. "Yes, they're pretty," Lauren said, "but we're staying on this side, sweetheart." She didn't want to wander into a professional event uninvited. But fate didn't care about boundaries. On the other side of the park, Erwin stepped out of a black SUV. He was dressed in a simple button-down and slacks, casual for him, though still crisp and polished. His company was sponsoring part of the charity drive, and his presence was expected. He mentally prepared to shake hands, smile politely, and give a short speech. The usual. But something felt different today. A strange restlessness in his chest. He told himself it was nothing. He walked toward the tents, greeting volunteers and coordinators, trying not to feel out of place despite the cheerful atmosphere. When he looked toward the open field, he noticed families scattered across the grass. Parents with toddlers, small children playing tag, a couple teaching their son to ride a bike. Erwin paused. His mind flickered to the little girl he saw months ago, waving from the sidewalk. To the ache he felt whenever he saw a child who seemed too familiar. He turned away quickly. Work, focus, routine, those were his safe zones. Yet today, his thoughts refused to settle. Emma spotted a colorful butterfly near the bushes and toddled after it. The butterfly fluttered just out of reach, pulling her a little farther each time. Lauren didn't notice at first. She was distracted picking up the snack container Emma had dropped. "Emma?" She called out, expecting her to be a few feet away. But Emma had wandered several steps further. Still not far. Still within reach. Still safe. For now. Lauren moved faster. Near the charity tents, Erwin was speaking to a coordinator when a small shape caught his attention at the edge of his vision. a toddler moving toward the lake area. He turned his head fully. A little girl in a soft-colored dress, chubby cheeks, small curls bouncing as she walked, arms slightly out for balance, nothing unusual, except the feeling. A pull, sharp, instinctive, impossible to explain. His breath stilled. He stepped away from the coordinator without finishing the conversation. Lauren finally spotted her daughter near the sloped grass leading toward the lake. Her heart jolted. Emma, baby, stop. Emma didn't understand the urgency. She turned her head toward the sound, then giggled, thinking her mother was playing. A moment of innocence, a moment of danger. Lauren moved as fast as she could. Her pulse raced. Her breath shortened, but she was too far for comfort, too far to stop her in time. And just as panic began to rise, a man stepped into Emma's path, quickly but gently scooping her up before her small feet reached the wet grass. Lauren froze. Erwin picked Emma up carefully, instinct guiding him more than thought. Hey there, he murmured, steadying her against his chest. You shouldn't wander this close. Emma looked up at him with big eyes, calm, curious, unafraid. Her small hand grabbed the fabric of his shirt. Up, she said softly. Erwin felt something erupt inside him, a recognition so strong it nearly buckled his knees. Then he saw it. The tiny mark on her shoulder, the one his family carried, the one he carried. His entire world lurched. No, he whispered, voice trembling. No, that's not possible. Emma pressed her cheek against him, trusting him without hesitation. Erwin's throat tightened, his chest constricted. His grip adjusted instinctively to support her better. His mind barely registered the sound of hurried footsteps until Lauren's voice cut through the air, sharp with terror. Emma. Lauren reached them in seconds, breathless, her heart pounding out of her chest. She grabbed Emma into her arms, holding her close with trembling hands. Then she looked up, and her entire body went still. Erwin, standing a few steps away, breathing hard, eyes wide, shock written across every line of his face. He took a half step forward, then hesitated. Lauren, he said, voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me? The words hit her like cold water. The history they shared, the pain they carried, the silence she chose, the truth she feared. All of it rose between them in one silent, devastating second. Lauren held Emma tighter. Her voice cracked. This wasn't how you were supposed to find out. Erwin stared at Emma, at her face, her posture, the birthmark he couldn't unsee. Everything he had ignored, everything he had buried, everything he had lost, came crashing down. The world didn't just shift. It broke open. Before we continue this powerful moment, take a second to like this video and comment what city you're watching from. Your engagement helps us bring more stories your way. Emma was still in Lauren's arms when Erwin spoke again, voice trembling, eyes locked on the child who had changed everything with a single moment. Lauren, please, he said, stepping closer but not enough to invade her space. Tell me what's going on. Tell me the truth. Lauren's breath caught. She wasn't afraid. She was overwhelmed. Years of silence were collapsing all at once. Emma shifted, resting her head on Lauren's shoulder, thumb in her mouth, unaware of the emotional storm surrounding her. Lauren swallowed, her heartbeat loud in her ears. This was the moment she'd spent years avoiding. The moment she feared would tear open old wounds. The moment she thought she'd never face. I didn't want it to happen this way, she whispered. Erwin nodded, eyes soft but frantic. I know, I can see that. But is she? Lauren closed her eyes briefly. Yes. Erwin inhaled sharply. His hand rose unconsciously, as if reaching for Emma, but he stopped himself. Respectfully, carefully. Lauren noticed that, the restraint, the gentleness, and it made her chest tighten. For the first time, he wasn't acting out of fear. He was acting out of care. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, voice quiet but full of ache. Lauren looked away, not to avoid him, to gather strength. Because I was scared, she said honestly. Not of you. Of everything around you. Erwin remained still, listening the way she had always needed him to. Lauren wiped a tear with the back of her hand. Your parents made it clear what they thought of me. They judged my background, my education, my work. They treated me like someone you'd outgrow. Erwin's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. And you? She exhaled, shakily. You didn't protect me. You didn't say anything that night. You didn't put yourself between me and their disrespect. Erwin lowered his head, ashamed, accepting, no excuses forming on his lips. Lauren continued, voice breaking in places she tried to hold steady. I kept asking myself, if they already looked at me like that, what would they think of my child? How would they treat Emma? Would she grow up feeling like she didn't belong? Erwin's throat worked as he swallowed. I never wanted her to feel unwanted, Lauren said. I never wanted her to grow in an environment where she had to earn basic respect. She looked directly into Erwin's eyes, full of truth and vulnerability. And I didn't trust you to protect her. Not then. Not when it mattered most. Erwin closed his eyes in pain, his shoulders falling. Lauren shifted Emma's weight gently before continuing. I didn't hide her out of spite. I hid her because I was afraid your silence would follow her, that she would feel invisible the way I did. Erwin lifted his gaze again, and for the first time since she met him, his eyes were wet. I was wrong, he whispered. I was wrong about everything, and I see it now. Lauren's voice softened. I'm not saying you're a bad man. You never were. But your world, your family, your habits, they weren't safe for us. Erwin nodded slowly, absorbing every word, not trying to defend himself. And when I found out I was pregnant, she said quietly, I decided that peace was more important than connection. Safety was more important than tradition. And I wasn't going to raise Emma in a place where I had to fight just to be respected. That wasn't what I wanted, Erwin said, voice tight. I never wanted you to feel alone. But I did, Lauren replied. And when a mother feels alone, she protects her child, no matter the cost. The wind passed softly through the trees. Emma shifted again, now half asleep. Erwin wiped his face subtly, then spoke with a steadiness he had never shown before. Thank you, he said. Lauren blinked, surprised. For what? For trusting yourself, he said. For choosing her, for being strong enough to do this alone. I don't like that I wasn't part of it, but I understand now, and you're right to expect better from me. Lauren felt her breath hitch. Erwin continued, voice low and sincere. I'm not going to argue with anything you said, not one word. I earned your silence, I earned your distance, and if I want any place in her life, in your life, I have to rebuild everything I broke. He stepped closer, not demanding, not pleading, present. Tell me what you need, he said softly. Not as someone trying to fix the past, but as a father who has just realized he has a daughter. Lauren looked at him for a long moment, seeing the man he used to be, the man he was now, and the man he might become. This wasn't a reconciliation, not yet. This was honesty. The first honesty they'd ever truly shared, and it cracked something inside her, not pain, but release. She whispered, I need you to listen. And keep listening. Erwin nodded without hesitation. I can do that. And I need you, she added, voice trembling, to show consistency, not just emotion. His answer came instantly. You will have it. The distance between them didn't disappear. The pain didn't vanish. The history didn't rewrite itself. But something changed. Something real. Something new. Something that wasn't there before. A beginning. For a while, neither of them spoke. Lauren held Emma securely, her heartbeat still unsettled but not frantic anymore. Erwin stood opposite her, hands at his sides, trying to steady a breath that refused to calm. The air between them shifted, no longer sharp but heavy with truth. Finally, Erwin exhaled and lowered himself to sit on the near bench. It wasn't dramatic or commanding. It was humble, a gesture of a man finally willing to be vulnerable. Lauren, he said quietly, there are things I need to tell you, not to excuse what happened. Just so you understand the pieces of me that failed you. Lauren hesitated, then sat a few feet away, Emma still nestled against her shoulder. I'm listening, she said, the same phrase she once wished he would offer her. Erwin nodded slowly. When I was growing up, he began, voice low and steady. Silence wasn't just normal, it was expected. My parents believed emotions were distractions, that speaking up meant you were losing control. He looked down at his hands that ran a business, shaped decisions, influenced rooms, but once failed to defend the woman he cared for. If something hurt me, he continued, I was told to handle it privately. If something felt wrong, I was told to stay composed. If someone disrespected me, my parents said the best response was to rise above it and say nothing. He paused, swallowing hard. So when they disrespected you, I froze. I didn't know how to challenge them, not because you weren't worth it, but because I'd never been taught to confront the people closest to me. Lauren listened, expression soft but guarded. But, Erwin added firmly, that doesn't justify what I did, or what I failed to do. You were hurt because I stayed quiet, and I will carry that for the rest of my life." Lauren lowered her gaze. Hearing him own it, truly own it, stirred something inside her. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, but recognition of genuine growth. Erwin continued, voice breaking at the edges. "When you walked out, I realized something I never admitted before. Silence isn't strength, it's fear. It's the easiest way to lose the people who matter." Emma shifted in Lauren's arms again, stirring lightly before turning her face toward Erwin. Her eyes blinked open, curious, bright, calm. Erwin froze. She looked at him the same way she had looked at him the day he picked her up, like she knew him without needing an explanation. Lauren adjusted Emma so she could sit upright on her lap. Emma lifted her hand toward Erwin, reaching. Lauren's brows lifted softly. "She doesn't usually do that with strangers," she murmured. Erwin felt his heart crack open, a quiet, profound breaking. "She knows," he whispered, staring at the little hand extended toward him. "Somehow, she knows." Lauren hesitated, then gently shifted Emma closer. Erwin didn't touch her immediately. He waited for permission. Lauren saw it, the difference between the man he was then and the man he was becoming. "You can hold her," she said softly. Erwin's breath caught. He reached forward slowly, carefully, uncertainly, as if she were the most delicate thing he had ever touched. Lauren guided Emma into his arms, and the moment her small body rested against him, Erwin's entire posture changed. He held her like she was something sacred, something precious, something he had missed without knowing. Emma studied him with wide eyes, then pressed her small hand to his cheek. Erwin inhaled sharply, stunned by the contact. Lauren watched, her heart tightening. "She does that when she feels safe," Lauren said quietly. Erwin's voice trembled. "Safe? With me?" Lauren nodded once. Emma giggled softly, tapping his cheek again. Erwin chuckled, a sound so rare and genuine that Lauren felt her breath catch. He looked at Emma with awe. "She's perfect." Lauren smiled faintly. "She's strong. She's curious. She's stubborn. She's sweet. She's everything." Erwin blinked, overwhelmed. "She's everything I didn't know I needed." They sat in silence for a moment, Emma now fascinated by the buttons on Erwin's shirt. Erwin glanced at Lauren. "I missed so much." Lauren's expression softened, but her voice remained steady. "You did, but missing the past doesn't mean you can't show up now. Consistently, presently, patiently." Erwin nodded with conviction. "I will. I will show up for her in every way I failed to show up for you." Lauren's throat tightened. "This isn't about me anymore." Erwin looked deeply at her. "It is, because the way I treat her will always reflect the way I treat you. You're her mother. If I respect her, I must respect you. That's the foundation." The honesty in his voice pulled at her heart in ways she wasn't ready for. Erwin glanced down at Emma again, who had now leaned her head against his chest. His voice softened. "I never thought I'd be a father. I never thought I would deserve something like this." Lauren gently corrected him. "It's not about deserving, it's about responsibility and heart." He nodded. "Then I will build both, even if it takes time." Erwin's chest rose and fell slowly as he settled Emma more securely in his arms. His voice dropped to a quiet confession. "Lauren, I want to be better, not just for Emma, for myself, for who I should have been when I had you." Lauren exhaled, tears gathering in her eyes. Not from pain this time, from release. "You're doing better," she whispered. "Right now. This is different." Erwin shook his head slightly, his voice gaining strength. "Different isn't enough. I want to rebuild the parts of myself that were broken long before you came into my life. I want Emma to grow up seeing a man who speaks up, who stands firm, who loves without silence." Emma babbled softly, patting his chest. Erwin smiled, a real smile, soft and full. "And I want her to know," he added, looking at Lauren, "that her mother is the strongest person I've ever known." Lauren's breath hitched. She wasn't used to hearing words like that. Not from him, not from anyone in his world. Erwin held her gaze. No fear, no hesitation, no pride. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he murmured. "I'm asking for a chance, to earn a place, to show you I can be the father she needs, and the man I should have been." Lauren looked at him for a long moment, not deciding, not judging, just feeling. Emma yawned, settling comfortably in Erwin's arms as if she belonged there. And Lauren realized something quietly profound. This was not the man she left years ago. This was someone rebuilding himself piece by piece. Not for her, for their daughter, for truth, for growth, for a future that might finally be possible. Emma had fallen asleep in Erwin's arms, her small cheek pressed against his chest, her breathing soft and rhythmic. Lauren watched them, her daughter curled against a man who was still learning how to hold honesty, responsibility, and love in equal measure. For the first time, Erwin didn't look like the polished CEO who commanded rooms. He looked like a father, humbled, shaken, grateful, and terrified of making another mistake. Lauren stood, adjusting Emma's baby bag over her shoulder. "We should head back," she said softly. "She needs lunch soon." Erwin nodded quickly. "Of course. Let me help." He didn't hand Emma back immediately. Instead, he stood slowly, cradling her as if she were the most precious thing he had ever held, which, for him, she was. They walked toward the parking lot together, quiet but no longer burdened by the same barriers. The air felt different, less heavy, more open, as if the truth had cleared a space between them that had never existed before. But as they neared the sidewalk, Lauren's phone buzzed. She glanced at it briefly, a message that made her blink twice. "It's your mother," Lauren said, startled by her own voice. "She wants to meet us." Erwin stopped walking. His expression tightened, not angry, not fearful, just surprised. He adjusted Emma gently in his arms. "She knows we're here?" Lauren nodded. "She said she's at home and wants to talk. Today. Privately." Erwin exhaled deeply. A moment ago, he had felt ready to take on the world. Now, the ground beneath him shifted slightly. Lauren watched him carefully. "Erwin, if you're not ready—" "No," he interrupted, shaking his head. "I need to do this. I should have done it years ago." He looked at Emma, his daughter, then at Lauren. "I'm not letting silence decide anything for me ever again." Lauren held his gaze, searching for hesitation. She found none. "Okay," she whispered. They drove separately, but the silence between them had changed. It was no longer fear or distance. It was anticipation, the kind people feel before a truth that has been waiting too long. When Lauren pulled into the driveway, memories of the cold dinner resurfaced, the judgment, the subtle insults, the quiet humiliation. But today felt different. Erwin stood outside waiting for them, Emma in his arms. He wasn't rigid like the last time he stood here. He was grounded, steady, prepared. "I'm right here," he whispered to Lauren before they walked up to the door. And for the first time in her life, she believed him. The door opened before they reached it. Erwin's mother stood there, poised as always, but something in her expression had changed. Her eyes drifted immediately to Emma, and Lauren instinctively stepped closer protectively. Erwin's mother held up her hand gently. "Please," she said softly, "come in." There was no judgment in her tone, no clipped politeness, just gravity. They entered the sitting room, the same one where Lauren once felt painfully out of place. But the atmosphere now was different, warmer, heavy, but not hostile. Erwin's mother sat slowly, hands folded in her lap. Her eyes drifted to Emma again, studying her carefully, but not coldly. "I had a feeling," she whispered. "I saw the pictures from the event online, and I knew." Erwin stiffened. Lauren held Emma closer. His mother's voice trembled faintly. "She looks like him, just like he did." Erwin frowned. "Like I did." His mother nodded, eyes distant. "When you were a baby, before everything changed." Lauren and Erwin exchanged a confused glance. "What do you mean?" Erwin asked. His mother inhaled deeply, the kind of breath someone takes before revealing something they've hidden for far too long. "There's something I never told you," she said softly, turning to Lauren first. "Something that might explain everything. Not excuse it, but explain it." Lauren remained silent, alert but calm. Erwin's mother looked down at her hands. "When I married into this family, I wasn't accepted, not fully, not openly, not kindly." Erwin stiffened. "Mother, no," she said firmly. "I need to say this. I should have said it years ago." She looked at Lauren, really looked at her. Her eyes softened with a kind of understanding Lauren never expected. "When Erwin was born, I was treated the same way you were." Lauren's breath caught. Erwin's eyes widened. "What?" The comments, the disapproval, the subtle attacks hidden behind civility. She blinked rapidly, steadying her voice. His father's side believed I was beneath their standards. They thought I wasn't polished enough, not cultured enough. Lauren's lips parted. Erwin's mother continued, voice breaking. I was humiliated in this very room more times than I can count, and I learned the same thing you did, Lauren. When a woman feels alone, she protects her child, even if it means becoming quiet, even if it means shrinking to survive. She wiped at her cheek, and because of that, I raised my son to be silent, to avoid conflict, to keep peace, even when it hurt him. I thought I was protecting him, but I was passing down my fear. Erwin stared at her, stunned, hurt, but understanding. Lauren felt her heart soften against her will. Erwin's mother continued, When I saw how my family treated you, I saw myself, and I hated it, but I didn't stop it, because I was still that scared young woman trying not to be rejected again. She looked at Emma, asleep in Erwin's arms. When I heard what happened at the park, and that Emma is ours. She paused, voice trembling. I knew I had to tell you the truth, Erwin. You didn't become emotionally silent because you were cold. You became silent because I showed you silence was survival. Erwin swallowed hard. Mom. She stood slowly and approached Lauren, not too close, but close enough to show intention. I'm sorry, she whispered. For the pain you felt, for the disrespect, for the way my silence became a weapon. I cannot erase the past, but I will not repeat it. Lauren's eyes stung, not with anger, but recognition. Erwin looked from his mother to Lauren, then to Emma. Something inside him shifted, the last piece falling into place. He turned to Lauren, voice steady and full of sincerity. I want to be in Emma's life, he said. Not out of obligation, out of love, out of responsibility, out of growth I should have had years ago. And I want to show you, both of you, that silence ends with me. Lauren inhaled sharply, her heart tightening. Erwin took one small step closer. I don't know what our future looks like, he admitted, but I want to earn a place in it, patiently, respectfully, consistently. Lauren felt her walls shift, not falling, but softening. I'm not asking you to take me back, he whispered. I'm asking you to let me try. Lauren searched his eyes, the man who once failed her, now standing as the man she wished he had been. She nodded, small, cautious, hopeful. We can start there, she said softly. Erwin exhaled shakily, relief and emotion blending. Emma stirred awake, blinking up at both of them. She reached for Lauren with one hand, and rested the other on Erwin's chest. 2 parents, 1 child, a future unwritten, but possible. Before you go, please like this video, comment where you watch from, and subscribe for more powerful, inspiring stories. Your engagement helps bring these stories to more amazing viewers around the world.